Hi there, my name is Taylor. I'm a freelance designer, and today I'm going to show you the tool that I use to help me break down the cost of a design project when I am producing a proposal for a client. I didn't use anything like this for a very long time. I produced proposals independently of each other. I made up the prices and the hours each time, and it was very difficult for me to be consistent with the amount of money I was making, and this tool is much better for helping me produce accurate estimates. So I'm going to share it with you because you might find it useful. So I've created this tool in Google Sheets, but you can use any spreadsheet. It's broken down into two main sections. I have my costs and I have a few other considerations. Here I've broken my services down into different roles, and I've included an extra role in case I want to subcontract another designer to help me on a project. So why do I break my services down into different roles? That's because the different things that I do are worth different amounts. So if I'm doing some creative direction work, then that requires more skills and more responsibilities, and therefore it's worth a higher amount. You might be surprised to find out that clients are very happy to pay different rates for the exact same person. If I'm doing lots of managerial work, then they understand I'm taking on a lot more responsibility, and therefore I'm charging a higher rate. Let's do a hypothetical project in which I do 2 hours of managerial work, I do 6 hours of creative direction, and I do 20 hours of design work. And let's assume I also subcontract another designer to help me for 10 hours. When I first started in freelancing, I thought that all I had to do was charge the client for the exact amount of hours that I was working at the rate I wanted to be paid. So that would have meant, £400 for these design services. What I've realized is that that's not how business works. My business has its own bank account, which is separate to my personal bank account. And when I'm finished with a project and I get paid with an invoice, the invoice goes into my business's bank account, and I then pay myself the amount that I am owed according to the hours that I worked. So once I've paid myself to do this work, paid from my business bank account into my personal bank account, the business still has to factor in its costs and profit margin and other things. The next section is my fixed costs, and I put this in there because of the fact that I have to continue to pay the costs whether or not somebody pays me to do any work. And so what I now do is I factor that into the cost of my projects. So if a client is using 38 hours of my time, then they're also using 38 hours worth of rent and 38 hours worth of my monthly storage and software costs. And so I factor that into the price. So in this case, for 38 hours, it costs me and my business £103 just to cover the costs. And so I include that into the final price so that my business's costs are covered by the project. That's a very normal thing to do in business. You first cover your costs and then you make profit on top. So here I have my total expenses, which leads me on to the next part, which is a couple of considerations I have to make. Immediately what I do is I slap on a 33% contingency margin. Now what that means is I have come to terms with the fact that I'm an optimist. I always underestimate how long things are going to take and how difficult they're going to be, because I think it's going to go smooth every time, but it never does. And so I've learned that and decided that I'm going to always add 33%, because if the client still says yes to the total figure, then that's good news for me. I know I comfortably have that margin for error and the project still doesn't go over budget. If I didn't include that and my optimistic predictions were wrong, then the client would suddenly be out of pocket because I'm needing to do more work than I originally anticipated. The next thing I do is I include a profit margin of 20%, and different businesses will charge a different profit margin, but 20% is pretty healthy. And what that means is this money, £242, goes straight into the business account and it stays there. The business now owns that money, and that money can then be used to cover costs. It can be used to provide me with some runway in case something goes wrong, or it can be used for me to reinvest in more software, more equipment. That profit sits there and helps the business to grow separately from me as a freelancer. What that then brings me to is a total cost, let's say £1,450. I could then take that amount, that estimate, and say to the client the project is 1,450. However, there are some clients that have been working with me for a very long time, or I like very much, I support their goals, or they have slightly smaller budgets. And so what I have included is an option for me to knock off 10%. So for some of my really long-term clients, I give them a discounted total, just because I think it's the right thing to do in order to build really good relationships with your clients. Now, just because I've been given an estimate by this tool does not mean I will use it. Sometimes I'll be sitting in a client meeting and I'll run a couple numbers and I will slap on a £1,000 extra. So I'll charge them £2,500 or £3,000. Or sometimes maybe I'll just completely halve the budget. I really like the client, I really love what they're doing, and I think it's an important project, so I'll just slice the cost in half because they don't have the budget. So this is entirely up for me to decide whether or not I want to listen to it. What it does provide you with is the confidence that if I charge the amount that this estimator tells me, I can almost entirely guarantee that the project will be a success because I've added a contingency. The business will continue to operate because I know that I've covered the costs. So I can be confident that when I'm producing a design proposal that I'm not going to add up the hours at the end and realize I made £4 an hour, which is what used to happen a lot. I think that's about everything. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message or leave a comment. I'll put a link to this sheet in the description so that if you like, you can make a copy and use it for yourself, put in your own numbers, put in your own job roles, it's up to you. And I hope it helps you just to see how I work. Thank you for watching.